Well, and oil is lower still today. Deeply curious to hear what the Admiral has to think, and we're lucky to have him back today. Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, former Destroyer Squadron Commander, U.S. Navy Senior Fellow of the Center on Cyber and Technology Innovation, Foundation for Defense of Democracies. It's great to see you, sir. Welcome back to Bloomberg. When you hear the president say something like this and you now confirm the attack on the cargo ship, does it make you think we're going back to war?
This is a complex issue. I think as a military officer, I would recommend a proportionate counterstrike against the drone launching areas of the IRGC, in around Bandar Abbas or around the Strait of Hormuz. But politically, the president really wants this peace deal to proceed, the negotiations to proceed. I think he'll probably, my gut reaction is he'll let this one go. And look, what we're talking about here is the Southern Transit Scheme, the one we've been using since about April 2nd. We were getting through about 1 million or 2 million barrels a day till the ceasefire was signed. Then it was about 9 million barrels a day. As the president said, there was a big day yesterday. I'm not sure it was a record. I think I've seen higher numbers than that. But in any case, back to normal flow yesterday. This is a transit scheme, generally mine swept by the United States, protected by U.S. aircraft and ships on the edges of it. But, clearly, it's shot down a lot of drones over the last, 4 weeks. But clearly one here got through, hit a ship. The good news is, as he averred to there, many of the drones have small explosive amounts in them. So if they hit a superstructure, the top part of a ship, known as a superstructure, you can get the fire out quick, then the damage is minimal to moderate.
Iran seems convinced it's going to be able to charge fees. We don't call them tolls, which is a little bit too cute for most people, Admiral. But I'm wondering what you see as the future for the Strait. Could we be in a world where these 3 separate routes are maintained by 3 separate entities?
No, I don't think so. I think, look, if they decide to charge transit scheme through the northern transit lane, the one between Iranian islands and Iran, they may be able to get away with that. But what will happen is the only ships that will go through there are the ones going to Iranian ports. And then ones going to other ports, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates will go through the Southern Transit Scheme. I think we can keep Oman from violating international law and going along with Iran. But that's going to mean a lot of talks with Oman. But I also tell you, the other big deal is the Saudis are going to build a second cross peninsula from east to west pipeline. Yeah. As is the United Arab Emirates, a second one down to Fujairah, outside the Strait of Hormuz. And, they're not limited by environmental impact statements and OSHA and EPA. They're going to be built fast. And once they do it, in a weird way, by this overplay by Iran, they're frittering away their leverage. This leverage will expire when more pipelines are complete.
Fascinating. Could we end up in a world, and I know you're not an energy analyst, Admiral, but you sure seem to know what you're talking about every time we get together on this, when it comes to the oil industry, could we be in a world where we create an irrelevant Strait of Hormuz? Can you reroute that much oil?
So I think I'd have to separate it to crude, other oils, LNG, liquefied natural gas, and fertilizer. The other ones, the non-crude, are going to probably still have to come to the Strait. So I wouldn't call it irrelevant, but I would call it less urgent, or there's a lower ability to drive an international crisis, because as we found out during this, there are other sources of LNG, particularly the United States, can step in. We may be slightly more expensive than Kuwaiti or Qatari LNG, but when we're available, we're 100% available because no one's blockading our ports.
What's your thought on the status of our armada, of this massive fleet that we have that was conducting the blockade? Of course, we've had multiple carrier strike groups there. We've got, I think, 50,000 men and women still in the region, and we know that a lot of these deployments are extended. We've talked about this before, Admiral. Do they all need to stay in place for the balance of this 60-day period?
Yes, and probably beyond. There's going to be about 4 60-day periods to get us at least past early to mid-November, and then the president might have a different decision-making matrix. But I would tell you maybe a more aggressive decision-making matrix. But the aircraft, the Air Force squadrons, that are on the Arabian Peninsula, and the 2 Navy carrier strike groups and the 17 or 18 destroyers are all critical. And so we're going to maintain those, but we'll rotate the actual ships through there.
Okay.
We have 80 destroyers in the Navy, only 17 are there. So we have an ability to do that. I will tell you, if this goes on more than another 6 months, there will be a long-term impact. The Navy will be able to do the mission for the next year and a half. But then 3 years from now, the Navy and the Air Force fighter squadrons that are also playing in this are going to have a significant readiness ding.
How's morale out there? What are you hearing from your contacts?
Look, they want to be on. I have lots of friends out there, relatives. They want to be on mission. Every military soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian wants to be on mission. The ones in the Arabian Gulf, the ones in the Arabian Peninsula are on mission. So I think morale is as one would expect, high at getting to execute mission.
Wow, we're so lucky to have this incredible volunteer military force. Admiral, I have to ask you about reports this week. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, forced out the man who many people know as the last American service member on the ground in the evacuation of Kabul. It was a very famous night vision photograph of him walking up the ramp, the back of a military transport aircraft, last boots on the ground. Hegseth forced out General Chris Donahue, reportedly a fierce and beloved leader of our armed forces. The brain drain at the Pentagon is real. Why did this have to happen?
Yeah, this is a real own goal, a big mistake by Secretary Hegseth. So first I'll say, CD, is a Delta Force commander, 82nd Airborne commander. He is a soldier, strong leader. I spent a lot of time in Ukraine working with their military, and I learned a lot about drones. When I come out, the one U.S. general that really, senior officer that really understood drone warfare correctly and how to counter drones was General Donahue. So from my perspective, this is a big loss. The Army, I don't know what his next job should have been, but I know he should have had another job where we could use his talents leading us. And he's among about a dozen to 15 senior, 3- and 4-star admirals and generals removed from service without explanation by Secretary Hegseth. And I think this weakens our national security with no obvious payoff.
What's the house cleaning all about if we're losing this much experience? Is it a loyalty test?
I think for some of them, the initial ones, like the head of our Navy, Admiral Franchetti, she's fantastic. I'd known her for 35 years. She was the best person for the job, but she was a woman. And Secretary Hegseth made it clear in his 2024 book that he didn't have a lot of respect for her or in general for women serving in combat. And so I think he has a issue with that. It's misplaced. Anything he puts in place now will be changed by his successor. We absolutely need the 51% of our society that's female to be an important part of our military across all services, in combat, in support roles, and everything. This is really misplaced effort by the Secretary of Defense.
I really appreciate you weighing in on that, Admiral, and it's always a pleasure to spend some time with you. Thank you. Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, U.S. Navy Foundation for Defense of Democracies.